Have you ever wondered why two people with the same talent can end up living completely different lives? People usually have simple answers for this. One person worked harder, one person was luckier, one person was simply more motivated. But after living in Romania, the UK, Japan, and Turkey, I've come to believe something completely different. I don't think motivation has changed my life nearly as much as my environment has. And in this video, I will explain why. Because once you understand this idea, you'll stop asking yourself, how do I become more motivated? Instead, you'll start asking a much more powerful question. What kind of environment am I creating for myself? Growing up in a small hometown, my dreams always felt bigger than my surroundings. It wasn't because people lacked ambition or that they tried to discourage me. Everyone simply believed what they had experienced. If nobody around you has studied abroad, studying abroad will feel extraordinary. If nobody around you speaks four languages, being multilingual will feel unrealistic. If nobody around you has ever received an international scholarship, you naturally start to believe that international scholarships are reserved to certain people. But nobody has to tell you that. Your environment teaches you without saying a word. And that's what makes it so powerful. The things we see every day slowly become the limits of what we believe is possible. So when I first discovered Erasmus+, everything changed. But not because I was smarter or because I woke up one morning feeling more motivated. What changed was the people I met. I met young people my own age traveling across Europe. They were organizing projects, leading workshops, speaking multiple languages. So that became the normal for me. Because before meeting them, I didn't even know this world existed. No one around me in my hometown was doing this. After meeting them, it became normal. So that's the first lesson I learned, and I hope that stays with you. Environment changes your definition of normal. Think about that for a moment. Most of us don't aim for what's possible. We aim for what's normal. And those two are very different things. Later on, when I was 19, I moved to the UK, and again, my normal changed. In the UK, I heard people talk about internships, research projects, networking events. That was the normal for them. Some of them applied, some were accepted, some were rejected, and that was it. And that taught me that confidence is seeing people around you trying. Because when trying becomes normal, fear becomes smaller. Then came Japan. Living in Okinawa taught me something I had not experienced before. It didn't just teach me something about schedule. It changes the way you think. I became more attentive, more curious, more patient. Because I noticed different attitudes towards community, respect, and daily discipline. And nobody set me down to teach me all these things. I simply absorbed them by living in Okinawa. Because that's what environments do. They're constantly teaching you something, even when nobody is speaking. Learning Turkish was another example. People often ask me, Monica, where did you get the motivation to study Turkish and reach a C1 level by yourself? Well, the environment pushed me to. I didn't just wake up one day thinking that, oh, I will learn Turkish so well that I will be able to deliver an academic presentation at Ankara University. No, it was the environment at first. The more Turkish I spoke, the more Turkish friends I made. The more Turkish I spoke, the more connections I made. The easier learning became, the more motivated I felt to learn. Most people think motivation comes first, but actually it's the environment that comes first and motivation follows it. Looking back, I realized that every turning point in my life started with entering a new room, a new university, youth exchange, a new community, a new course. None of those rooms changed my life overnight, but each one expanded what I believed was possible. That's why I believe the most ambitious people make this mistake. They believe that they can change themselves first without changing their surroundings. We tell ourselves that we need more discipline, more willpower, but maybe we just need more input, because your environment shapes your future in at least 3 ways. First, it shapes what you believe is possible. Secondly, it shapes what you believe is expected of you. And thirdly, it shapes the opportunities you notice. And think about the last one. You can't apply for an opportunity you've never heard of. Back in high school, someone introduced me to the world of Erasmus. Someone encouraged me to apply. Someone believed that I could contribute to this. So opportunities travel through people. That's why your network matters so much, because every person carries knowledge that you don't yet have. So what can you actually do with this idea? You don't have to quit your job, don't get me wrong. You don't need a bank account, you don't need to go and pay something. But you can start changing your environment today. You can read books written by people who think differently from you. Follow creators who challenge your assumptions instead of confirming them. Attend one event where you don't know anyone. Volunteer for an organization whose mission inspires you. Learn another language or message someone whose career you admire. Spend less time with content that makes you comfortable and more with ideas that make you feel slightly uncomfortable. If there's one idea you remember from this episode, I hope it's this. Your future is not built only by the decisions you make, it's also built by the rooms you enter, the people you listen to, and the conversations that you choose to have. Looking back, I think my life changed because I kept saying yes to environments that stretched me. Because some of them were uncomfortable, very intimidating, and some of them made me question things that I thought I knew. Every single one made my world bigger. And I think that's what growth actually is. Growth is slowly expanding the boundaries of what you believe your life can be. So this week, I want to leave you with one question. What environment are you living in today? And is that environment helping you become the person you want to be in 5 years from now? Think about it, because changing your future might just start with changing your surroundings. Thank you for listening to Moonatic Talks. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.